Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me start with a simple question. When was the last time you did something that truly scared you? Not something dangerous, but something uncomfortable, unfamiliar, risky. Now ask yourself this. When was the last time you grew without discomfort? The truth is comfort is seductive. It feels good, it's safe, it's predictable, but here's the paradox. The more time we spend in comfort, the more we sacrifice our potential. Today I want to challenge you to rethink the way you see comfort. Not as a reward, but as a trap. Because your comfort zone, the very thing that makes you feel secure, is quietly killing your potential. Let's break this down into 5 powerful truths. Growth is never born out of ease. It's born out of resistance, tension, discomfort. The very things most of us spend our lives trying to avoid. But if we're being honest with ourselves, we know that the moments that shaped us most weren't the easy ones. They were the difficult ones, the uncomfortable ones, the moments when we didn't know if we were going to make it, but kept going anyway. Yet, there's this deeply ingrained desire in us to seek comfort. We strive for stability, for routines that make us feel safe. We spend years building lives that minimize risk and maximize familiarity. It's understandable. We're wired for survival. But survival and fulfillment are not the same thing. What keeps you alive isn't always what makes you feel alive. Comfort feels good in the moment. It tells us we've earned our rest, that we deserve to relax, that we don't need to push so hard, and that's fine for a time. But when comfort becomes the default, it slowly turns into complacency. And complacency is the silent killer of growth. Think about muscles. If you don't use them, they weaken. Not overnight, but slowly, silently. A little less strength each day. The same thing happens to our minds, to our creativity, to our leadership. The very traits that help us innovate, connect, lead, and inspire begin to deteriorate when they're not challenged. Growth lives in friction. Friction means challenge. And challenge creates adaptation. That's how we get better. That's how we stretch beyond what we thought we were capable of. But the comfort zone, it's frictionless. It doesn't challenge. It doesn't test you, and because of that, it doesn't change you. There's a study from Stanford psychologists that explored the difference between people who believe their abilities are fixed and those who believe they can grow through effort. What they discovered was that those who believed in their capacity to improve what the researchers called a growth mindset not only performed better, they bounced back from failure more easily. They saw challenges as opportunities. They sought out feedback instead of avoiding it. They were resilient. But here's the catch. You can't develop a growth mindset inside a comfort zone. It's impossible because comfort avoids effort. It avoids struggle. And without struggle, you can't grow. A person doesn't wake up one day with resilience. It's built, and it's built through effort, failure, and the willingness to keep going anyway. Think about that for a moment. Every single trait you admire in someone, courage, tenacity, strength, wisdom, those are all forged in discomfort. Nobody becomes a leader because they played it safe. No one innovates by staying where it's comfortable. And no one unlocks their full potential by choosing the easy route. Discomfort, on the other hand, forces us to confront parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore. It strips away excuses, it exposes weaknesses, but it also reveals strength. When you're uncomfortable, you learn what you're really made of. Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix, shared a moment that changed the trajectory of his life. He had rented a movie, forgot to return it, and was hit with a 40 late fee from Blockbuster. He was embarrassed not just by the money, but by how ridiculous the system felt. And that discomfort-toned, small, inconvenient moment planted the seed for what would become Netflix. But let's look deeper. That moment of discomfort didn't just trigger an idea, it lit a fire. Hastings didn't say, "Well, that's annoying," and move on. He sat with that discomfort. He used it. He let it push him toward a bold, uncertain path, a path filled with risk, challenge, and the unknown. That discomfort didn't just build Netflix, it built resilience in him, because every pivot, every risk, every industry shakeup that Netflix underwent afterward, none of that would have happened if he stayed in his comfort zone. Discomfort is the birthplace of reinvention. This doesn't just apply to entrepreneurs or CEOs, it applies to all of us. Every one of us is presented with small choices every day to lean into discomfort or to retreat to safety, to try something new or stick with what we know, to have the hard conversation or stay silent, and those choices accumulate. They shape our trajectory. Not in dramatic overnight shifts, but in the small, quiet moments of decision making. And the hard truth is this: the longer you stay in comfort, the harder it becomes to leave. The comfort zone doesn't stay neutral. It slowly shrinks your ambition. It convinces you that playing small is wise, that safe is smart. But there's a difference between being safe and being stuck. It's easy to rationalize comfort, to say I'm just being responsible, or now isn't the right time, or I'll take the leap when I feel ready. But here's the thing. Growth doesn't wait for your readiness. Growth demands action before you feel prepared. You don't become brave and then take the leap. You take the leap and become brave in the process. That's why staying in your comfort zone isn't just about missing opportunities. It's about losing parts of yourself. The creative part, the curious part, the part that dreams, explores, challenges, questions. The longer you stay where it's safe, the more that part of you dims until one day you wake up and realize you've become a version of yourself that's smaller than who you were meant to be. And don't mistake motion for growth. You can be busy, efficient, productive, and still be in your comfort zone. Real growth happens when there's risk involved. When the outcome is uncertain. When failure is possible, that's where you learn. That's where you stretch. That's where you evolve. It's not about being reckless. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing when comfort is serving you and when it's sedating you. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who inspire you. I promise you, they didn't get there by staying comfortable. They chose challenge. They chose to lean into the unknown. They chose to trade short-term ease for long-term impact. So ask yourself, what's one area in your life where comfort has become a cage? What have you been avoiding because it's hard, awkward, or scary? What opportunity have you talked yourself out of, not because you aren't capable, but because you didn't want to be uncomfortable? That's the tension point. That's the edge of your growth. And you don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just need to take one step outside the zone, one uncomfortable conversation, one bold decision, one act of courage. Because every time you choose discomfort with intention, you expand your capacity, you stretch your limits, you train your resilience, and that's the fuel that drives real lasting growth. Fear has a way of disguising itself. It shows up looking like logic, like caution, like that voice in your head that says maybe later, or what if it goes wrong, or what if I'm not ready yet? And because it sounds reasonable, we listen. We think fear is a sign that something is wrong. But in reality, fear is often a sign that we're exactly where we're supposed to be, standing at the edge of growth, about to step into something unfamiliar, uncomfortable, and necessary. We've been taught to associate fear with danger, and for most of human history, that made sense. Fear kept us alive. It told us not to wander too far from the tribe, not to eat the wrong berries, not to run toward the lion. But the modern world isn't built like that anymore. The things we fear today aren't lions in the bushes. They're rejection, failure, embarrassment, change. They won't kill us, but they feel like they might. So we pull back, we freeze, we play small, and we tell ourselves we're being smart, when in reality we're standing still. But what if fear wasn't a red light? What if it was a green one? What if fear is less of a stop sign and more of a signal pointing us towards something worth doing? The problem is our brains don't make that distinction easily. They don't care about your purpose, your goals, your dream. Your brain is designed to protect you, not to push you. Its job is survival, not fulfillment. So the second you step into unfamiliar territory, your nervous system sends out a warning. Something's wrong. Retreat. But nothing's wrong. You're just stretching, you're just growing, and growth is always uncomfortable. Let me tell you a story. I once met a woman who had a dream of becoming a public speaker. Not for fame, not for money, but because she had a message inside her that she knew could help people. The catch? She had a stutter as a child. And because of that, she avoided microphones, stages, and even small group conversations for most of her life. Every time the idea of speaking in public came up, she'd feel that old fear rise in her chest. Her hands would shake, her mind would race, and that voice would return. This isn't for you. But something shifted. She was invited to speak at a local community event just 5 minutes. She hesitated. She nearly said no, but she didn't. She said yes, and I remember her telling me that the night before the event, she couldn't sleep. She went over her notes 100 times. She imagined every possible way it could go wrong. She almost backed out, but when the moment came, she stepped up. She shook. She stumbled. She forgot a line, but she finished. And when she stepped off the stage, she realized something profound. She had survived. 6 months later, she was speaking to rooms of 50, then hundreds. Then she started helping others do the same. Today, she leads workshops, she mentors women who've lost their voices, some literally, some emotionally, and teaches them how to find strength through speaking. Not because the fear went away, it didn't. The fear was still there, but now she knew how to move through it. That's the part we often miss. We think courage is the absence of fear. It's not. Courage is acting despite fear. It's saying, I feel this, I see it, but I'm not going to let it decide for me. Fear doesn't disappear when you become successful. It doesn't vanish when you hit your goals. If anything, the stakes just get higher. What changes is your relationship with it. You learn to recognize it not as a threat, but as a companion. One that always shows up before something meaningful. Every major turning point in your life likely had fear standing right next to it. The job you applied for when you didn't feel ready, the person you told the truth to when it scared you, the move you made, the risk you took, the leap that didn't come with a guarantee. You were afraid, but you did it anyway. And on the other side of that fear, growth, progress, expansion. The most impactful people, the ones who lead, create, serve, didn't get there because they were fearless. They got there because they were willing to walk with fear. They saw fear not as a wall, but as a doorway, and they chose to walk through it, even if their hands were shaken. And here's what's fascinating. Studies show that the physiological experience of fear and excitement are nearly identical. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your stomach flips. The only difference is the label you put on it. When you say, I'm afraid, your brain looks for danger. When you say, I'm excited, your brain looks for opportunity. What if the next time you felt fear, you just called it something else? Fear isn't failure. Fear is feedback. It's telling you that you're doing something new, something uncertain, something that might actually change things. If you weren't afraid, it probably wouldn't matter. Fear is often the GPS for your next breakthrough. It points you toward the edge of your comfort zone. And that's where all the magic happens. Think about how much we lose when we listen to fear without questioning it. How many ideas never see the light of day? How many conversations never happen? How many people never hear your voice, your story, your perspective? Because fear said not yet. But what if not yet becomes never? What's the cost of that? When we let fear make our decisions, we don't just stay safe, we stay stuck. We miss the chance to find out what we're capable of. We miss the joy of discovery, the pride of progress, the freedom that comes with realizing I'm stronger than I thought I was. Because every time you face fear and move forward anyway, you become more resilient, more confident, you don't have to do it perfectly. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to take the next step, because fear thrives in stillness, but it loses power in motion. The moment you act, the moment you speak, the moment you lean, a net shrinks and you grow. So the next time fear shows up, and it will pause and listen, not to the fear itself, but to what it might be pointing you toward. Maybe it's a new opportunity, a hard truth, a bold move, whatever it is. Don't turn back. Let it guide you, not govern you. Because sometimes the trembling hands, the racing heart, the uneasy breath, they aren't signs that you're in the wrong place. They're signs that you're standing on the threshold of something important. And your job isn't to silence the fear. Your job is to step through it. We are hardwired to seek certainty. It's a natural instinct. Our brains crave the familiar, the predictable patterns, the well-trodden paths, the sense that what's next is already known. Certainty feels safe. It comforts us. It makes us feel in control. But here's the truth. Certainty is overrated. It's a cage, not a sanctuary. Why? Because certainty, by definition, limits us. It confines us to the known, and the known is inherently small. It's the narrow corridor of everything we've already experienced, everything we've already tried, and everything we've already mastered. But your potential, your growth, your biggest breakthroughs, they don't live in what you already know. They live beyond it, in the unknown. Imagine a man climbing a mountain. He starts at the base camp, looking up at the peak that seems so high it touches the sky. To him, reaching the summit is the goal. It's the achievement he's chasing. He trains, he perseveres. He fights through exhaustion, cold, and doubt. And finally, he reaches the top. He stands at the summit, chest heaving, eyes wide. He's done it. He made it. But then he looks up and he sees another peak. Higher, more imposing, more difficult. And suddenly the summit he thought was the end becomes just the beginning of a new challenge. Now imagine if he had stayed at base camp, if he had chosen comfort over the climb, if he had told himself this is enough. He would never have known that the second peak existed. He would never have experienced the view from the summits. He would have missed the opportunity to push further, to grow stronger, to become more. This story is a metaphor for life, for your career, for your dreams. The greatest opportunities are hidden beyond the edges of your comfort zone, in places you haven't dared to go yet. But because we crave certainty, we often choose to stay put. We settle for what's familiar, safe, and predictable. We avoid discomfort. We avoid risk. But what we don't realize is that comfort hides opportunity. Discomfort reveals it. Research backs this up. The Harvard Business Review reports that 71% of high-performing professionals credit their success to taking risks that push them outside their expected roles and comfort zones. They didn't get where they are by playing it safe. They got there by embracing uncertainty, by saying yes to the unknown, by leaning into the challenges that others avoided. Think about some of the most inspiring stories. People who transformed their lives or their industries, they didn't do it by sticking to what they knew. They did it by stepping into uncertainty, by pursuing ideas that seemed risky, by moving toward the discomfort of growth rather than retreating into the ease of familiarity. There's a natural tension here. We want progress, but we want security. We want growth, but we fear the unknown. That tension creates friction. The very friction that sparks change. It's like a muscle. If you never challenge it, it weakens. But when you push through resistance, it grows stronger. The same is true for your mind, your skills, your courage. So what keeps us from embracing the unknown? Often it's fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unpredictable, and that's understandable. The unknown can feel like stepping off a cliff without knowing if there's a net below. But here's the truth. There is no net. There's only trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in your ability to adapt. Trust that discomfort is not a signal to retreat, but a signal to advance. Let's return to the mountain climber after seeing the second peak. He could have turned back. He could have decided that the first summit was enough. But those who reach the highest heights know that the journey never really ends. Each summit reveals another. Each victory uncovers a new challenge. That's the nature of growth. It's endless, exhilarating, and a little scary, but it's also where your greatest potential lies. There's a powerful lesson here. If you want to find new opportunities, you have to be willing to lose the illusion of certainty. You have to be willing to say, I don't know exactly what's next, but I'm going to keep moving forward anyway. Because when you stop chasing certainty, when you embrace the unknown, you open yourself up to discoveries you never imagined. I know this can be hard. The unknown feels like a void. It feels like chaos, but it's not. It's possibility. It's fertile ground for creativity and innovation. When you step beyond what's comfortable, you give yourself permission to experiment, to fail, to learn, and to grow. That's where new doors open. That's where new ideas spark. That's where your life transforms. Imagine if the pioneers who invented the airplane had stayed content with walking. Imagine if the first entrepreneurs had settled for what their parents did. Imagine if every great artist, thinker, and leader had chosen certainty over curiosity. We wouldn't have the advances, the freedoms, the opportunities we have today. Your comfort zone is like base camp. It's safe, it's predictable, but it's not where the magic happens. It's not where your potential waits, that lives in the unknown. The peaks you haven't yet seen, the challenges you haven't yet faced, the opportunities you haven't yet discovered. Every step you take beyond comfort is a step toward growth. Every moment you embrace uncertainty is a moment you give yourself a chance to be extraordinary. You don't have to see the whole path. You just have to take the next step, then the next, then the next. And sometimes that's all it takes to reveal the next peak. The peak you didn't even know was there. Comfort hides opportunity. Discomfort reveals it. And when you choose discomfort, you choose possibility. You choose growth. You choose a life that's bigger than you imagined. So what will you choose? Purpose is one of those words we throw around a lot. But rarely do we pause to truly understand what it means, how it comes to life, and where it actually resides. We all want to live a life full of meaning, a life where what we do matters. We long for that moment when purpose strikes us like a lightning bolt, clear, unmistakable, powerful. But here's the hard truth. Purpose doesn't just drop out of the sky. It's not something you find sitting in your comfort zone, scrolling through social media, or waiting for inspiration to hit. Purpose is forged. It's hammered out in the fire of struggle, shaped in the heat of adversity, and molded by the challenges that push us to our limits. Too often we search for purpose as if it's a treasure hidden in an easy place, a perfect job, or a flawless relationship. We expect it to arrive in moments of calm or success. But life rarely delivers purpose wrapped in convenience. Instead, purpose grows from the hard, messy, uncomfortable places we wish we could avoid. It's born when life breaks us down and forces us to rebuild. When pain threatens to consume us, but instead becomes the fuel that drives us forward. When what once felt like an end reveals itself to be a new beginning. Let me tell you a story about a soldier, a man who returned from combat carrying wounds that the eye couldn't see. He came back with PTSD, trapped in a war inside his mind and heart. The world he knew before the battlefield no longer made sense. He felt lost, broken, invisible even to himself. There was no quick fix, no easy path back to the life he once had. Most would have seen only a man defeated by his pain. But this soldier chose something different. Instead of letting his suffering define him, he chose to let it refine him. He started a small support group, just 3 veterans gathering together to share their stories, to heal, to find strength in one another. That group, born out of pain and resilience, grew. It transformed from a handful of broken souls into a thriving community serving thousands. From the depths of his struggle, this man discovered his purpose. His greatest pain became his deepest calling. He didn't find meaning in ease. He found it in the struggle, in the connection, and in the act of helping others rise from their own battles. This story illustrates a profound truth. Purpose is not found in moments of comfort. It's discovered in the challenges that shape us, in the risks that stretch us beyond what we thought possible. When you're comfortable, when everything feels safe and predictable, it's hard to see the bigger picture. Purpose requires you to step into the unknown, to face uncertainty, to wrestle with questions that don't have immediate answers. Think about the people who have made the biggest impact in history. The inventors, the leaders, the change makers. Their purpose didn't come from a place of ease. It was forged in moments of failure, rejection, and hardship. They endured setbacks that could have crushed their spirit, but instead those hardships sharpened their vision and deepened their resolve. Purpose is not a destination, but a journey marked by challenges that demand courage and resilience. It requires you to ask difficult questions. What am I willing to endure? What pain will I transform into power? How will I use my struggles to fuel my growth? When you wrestle with these questions, you forge your purpose with every decision you make to move forward, even when the path is unclear. It's easy to romanticize purpose as a magical discovery, but the reality is it's more like a craft, like a blacksmith shaping metal. Purpose takes time, effort, and a willingness to endure heat and pressure. It demands you face the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. The doubts, the fears, the wound, the sand, use them as tools for growth. And when you do, you don't just find purpose, you become purpose. Your struggles are not roadblocks, but signposts directing you to where your true meaning lies. The risks you fear are the very steps that stretch you toward a life of impact. The discomfort you resist is the forge where your purpose is tempered. This means every setback, every challenge, every moment of pain carries within it the seeds of something greater. So if you're waiting for purpose to arrive like a sudden revelation, know this: it's not waiting for you. Purpose waits for you to show up, imperfect and ready to face whatever comes. It's found in the moments when you choose to rise despite the pain. When you decide to turn your struggles into a story that inspires others. When you take the bold steps that push you beyond your limits. This is why those who have faced the hardest trials often lead the most purposeful lives, because they know that purpose isn't given, it's earned. It's carved out of adversity. It's the reward for those willing to walk through the fire, not around it. So embrace your struggles, lean into your risks. Know that the easy path will never bring you the depth of purpose you crave. Instead, purpose calls you into the hard places where growth happens, where meaning is made, and where your life transforms from ordinary to extraordinary. Your greatest purpose is waiting for you on the other side of discomfort. Will you step through the fire and claim it? We all have one thing in common. We will leave a legacy. The question that separates those who live fully from those who simply exist is whether that legacy is intentional. It's not about how long you live, but how deeply you impact the lives around you. Legacy is about what remains long after we are gone. The stories told, the changes made, the people inspired. And here's the undeniable truth. No one builds a legacy by staying comfortable. Think about it for a moment. What do you remember most about the people who have influenced your life? It's not their ease or their convenience. It's their courage. It's the risks they took when every voice inside their head screamed, "Stay safe." It's the sacrifices they made when the easy path tempted them. It's the bold, uncomfortable choices that changed the course of their lives and yours. We tend to think that comfort is the natural goal. We want security, predictability, a life free from hardship. But comfort is a subtle enemy. It lulls us into complacency, tells us to settle, to take the path of least resistance. It convinces us that staying safe is the smartest move. But legacy, lasting legacy, never born from safety. It is forged in the crucible of discomfort, sacrifice, and courageous decisions. Take a moment and think of someone who truly inspires you. Maybe it's a teacher who changed the trajectory of your life. Maybe it's a leader who stood firm in the face of adversity. Maybe it's a relative whose story of perseverance you carry in your heart. Now ask yourself, did they take the easy path? Did they avoid risk and play it safe every step of the way? Or did they step out into uncertainty, confront challenges head on, and make tough choices that mattered? It's almost never the case that those we admire lived a life free from struggle. They faced failure, rejection, fear. They wrestled with doubt and uncertainty, but they didn't let those obstacles define them. Instead, they let those obstacles refine them. That's how legacy is built. Through intentional acts of courage and resilience, through moments when you choose discomfort over ease, because you know that's where growth and impact live. A comfortable life may feel good, it might even feel safe, but rarely does comfort lead to something worth remembering. It's the stories of struggle, sacrifice, and boldness that endure. The stories where someone chose to stand up when it was easier to sit down, to speak out when silence was the safer option, to lead when following felt like the comfortable choice. Look at the leaders and changemakers throughout history. They didn't create movements by playing it safe. They took risks that jeopardized their status, their reputation, sometimes their very lives. They stepped into unknown territory with nothing but conviction and a vision for something greater. They knew that to leave a legacy, they had to trade comfort for courage. They had to face the discomfort of uncertainty, criticism, and failure. Legacy demands intentionality. It asks you to decide today, in this moment, what kind of story you want to tell. It requires you to evaluate whether you are willing to sacrifice convenience and comfort for the chance to make a difference. Because every legacy is built on choices big and small that ripple through time. It's tempting to believe that a legacy is something that happens to us by chance. But the truth is, legacy is something we create. It's something we build every day by the decisions we make when no one is watching. It's the way we treat others, the risks we take, the values we uphold, and the love we share. These aren't comfortable acts. They require us to stretch beyond what feels safe. Remember, courage is contagious. When you choose courage over comfort, you inspire others to do the same. You become the catalyst for change, not just in your own life, but in the lives of those around you. And that is how legacies grow, from one brave act after another, building momentum and creating a future shaped by intention rather than fear. So ask yourself, what kind of legacy will you leave? Will it be one born from comfort and convenience? Or will it be one forged in the fire of courage, sacrifice, and boldness? The comfortable path may feel good in the moment, but it rarely leads to something worth remembering. The legacy worth leaving calls you to step out, stand up, and embrace the discomfort that comes with true impact. Because at the end of the day, the stories we tell about ourselves and those told about us will be defined not by how comfortable we were, but by how courageous we chose to be. And that courage starts right here, right now, with the choice to refuse comfort when it threatens to keep us small, safe, and forgotten. Legacy isn't just about what you achieve. It's about who you become in the process. And the only way to become the person capable of leaving a meaningful legacy is to embrace discomfort, take risks, and live intentionally. No one builds a legacy by staying comfortable. The question is whether you're ready to make the choice that will define your life and your legacy. There's a hard truth that many of us avoid because it's uncomfortable to face, but it's one that needs to be heard if we are ever going to break free from the invisible chains holding us back. Your comfort zone is not your friend. It is a silent killer. Not of your happiness, not of your peace, but of your potential. It sneaks in quietly, whispering the most seductive lies that sound safe, but slowly rob you of everything you are capable of becoming. It tells you to play it safe. It urges you to don't rock the boat. It tells you to wait until you're ready. It makes you think that you need permission, validation, or perfect conditions before you can take the next step. But here's the brutal reality. Those conditions will never be perfect. Waiting for the perfect moment is just another way to stay stuck in the familiar, wrapped in the warm blanket of false security. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need a green light from the universe or the approval of those around you. What you need is courage. The courage to stand up, to lean in, to take the leap even when your heart is pounding with fear. And courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is showing up despite it. It's moving forward when every instinct in your body screams to retreat. It's taking that first shaky step, knowing you might stumble, fall, or even fail, and doing it anyway. Growth demands discomfort. It demands you step out into the unknown where there are no guarantees and the path is anything but smooth. That is where your true potential lies, in the space beyond what you know, beyond what feels safe. The life you want, the growth you need, the impact you're meant to make. They're all waiting for you on the other side of discomfort. So here's the challenge I want to leave you with this week. Don't put it off. Don't push it to someday, not next month. Do one thing that makes you uncomfortable. Maybe it's raising your hand in a meeting, asking the question you're scared to ask, sharing your story with someone who needs to hear it, or applying for a role you think you're not ready for. Whatever it is, lean into it. Step out of the comfort zone, because when you do, something incredible happens. You start to rewrite the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. You start to see that the fear you feel isn't a stop sign. It's a signpost pointing you toward the very thing that will change your life. You build resilience, you cultivate courage, and you create momentum that propels you toward a future you never imagined possible. Comfort is a trap. It's easy. It's familiar, but it's also limiting. It keeps you small, quiet, and unseen. But you were not made for smallness. You were made to shine, to inspire, to lead. That can only happen when you refuse to settle for comfort at the expense of your dreams. You already have everything you need inside of you to take that step. You are ready enough. You are capable enough. The only missing piece is the courage to show up, to risk, to embrace the unknown. When you do that, you won't just change your own life. You will change the lives of those around you. Your courage will inspire theirs. Your story will ignite their own. So take that step. Do the thing that scares you. Lean into the discomfort. Because on the other side of that discomfort is the life waiting for you. The life filled with purpose, passion, and impact. It's waiting for you to claim it. The question is, will you?